Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. Police in the Yukon continue to search for a missing man after a truck plunged into the Yukon River outside Whitehorse. 2 Americans were traveling south when their vehicle went off the road. Cheryl Kawaja reports it's an area of the Alaska Highway many locals find troubling.
There are still few details about exactly what happened here as a truck went into the river at the Lewis River Bridge on the Alaska Highway. What we do know is that it was a pickup truck traveling in this area Monday morning before 7 a.m. So it would have been dark here at that time. There were 2 adult men traveling in the pickup truck, and it was also towing a trailer with other vehicles. All of those vehicles right now are submerged underwater. Police confirmed that one of the 2 men was able to escape and seek medical treatment. The other is still missing. Both of those individuals were from Phoenix, Arizona. We know little more about them at this point. Many people nearby say this is not the first accident to happen here.
This is the second time that I'm aware of that somebody's actually missed the bridge and gone into the river.
They were traveling early in the morning. I don't know what the weather conditions were like. It's always foggy now, this time of year in the morning.
You can see up over there, I mean, there's not even much of a barrier.
People are scared of it because it's so narrow, and it is a concern.
It's not a good system that we have here. It has to be improved.
Meanwhile, the RCMP continue to search for the missing man. Boats were again on the water, also looking for the submerged vehicles. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, at the Lewis River Bridge.
After nearly 5 years in limbo, about a dozen Government of Nunavut employees who signed up to buy a condo in Iqaluit have been told they're no longer for sale. They were part of a GN staff condo program. The goal was to help workers into the private market by selling some units under market value. But those residents didn't even have contracts to live there until last year. Samuel Watt has that story.
Moshe Cote was over the moon when he signed a sales agreement for a condo on the road to nowhere in July 2023. But 9 months later, his unit is no longer for sale.
There is literal blood, sweat and tears in this.
Those units are now being turned into rentals for GN staff. Among the reasons, according to the Nunavut Housing Corporation, a shortage of those rentals, as well as low interest in the sales program. Years after residents moved in with no contract signed, they finally came last year. The option, to lease or to buy. Only 2 residents living here signed to buy. Catherine Tardif expressed interest in that, but says she didn't hear back until September when she was asked to finalise the deal. At the time, she was heading out of the country and unable to get it sorted in time.
They were saying if I wasn't seeing that lease, I wouldn't have anywhere to live when I come back.
So she felt forced to lease for the time being. But NHC President and CEO Aaron Devereaux says he gave residents ample notice and extensions.
Well, I would not argue, Sam, that they would have been 2 and 3 years working towards making that decision.
As for the 2 purchase contracts, Devereaux says they're still working on a solution because the closing date for them had expired before the condo corporation was dissolved. Moshe Cote disputes that. He also made a settlement offer, which was rejected.
I'll be 50 soon, and this was my only track to achieve home ownership.
Leaving him and other residents wondering whether they'll ever find their forever home. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A new emergency plan for Yellowknife was released today. It incorporates recommendations made to the city by KPMG in a review of how it responded to last year's wildfires, a response that included a mass evacuation. Jocelyn Chappelle has more.
The new plan is more than twice the size of the one that was in place last year. The 44-page guide was released this morning alongside an updated evacuation plan. It sets out how the city will work with the territorial government and other organizations, and how it will assist vulnerable populations such as elders and the homeless during emergencies. The evacuation plan includes measures to improve communications, one of the weaknesses KPMG identified in its review of last year's response. In all, KPMG made 26 recommendations in its final report, which it presented to the council in July. The city's director of public safety, Craig McLean, says 8 of those recommendations have been implemented so far. At a meeting on Monday, the mayor and council will get a presentation on changes that have been made as a result of KPMG's review. The updated plans are now available on the city's website. An independent review of the territorial government's response to last year's wildfires is expected at the end of this year. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A former chief of the Champagne and Asiatic First Nations has died. Bob Charlie died over the weekend. Charlie wore many hats throughout his lifetime, including musician, journalist, and father. Gary Bailey is a longtime friend of Bob Charlie. He says he'll hold on to Charlie's outlook on life.
He's just a kind and humorous guy. I think probably it was his humor that really sticks with me a lot, because he told me, years and years ago to just always remember humor. He said, that's a survival tool. That's, when you can have a good laugh, that's really helps you, and he just had a lot of good stories, and, it was an amazing guy.
Charlie was fighting cancer over the last few years. His family held a wake on Sunday. Bob Charlie was 78 years old. Tony Whitford, a respected leader and dedicated public servant in the Northwest Territories, died yesterday morning. He was 83. Whitford was first elected to the NWT Legislative Assembly in 1988. He served 3 terms as MLA and held numerous cabinet roles. He retired before the 2003 election after a long career in politics. Today, we spoke with Whitford's family and friends. They reflect on his legacy and the lasting impressions he leaves behind.
I know he went around the world meeting different very high-level people, and he was very good at it, by the way. He had a super rapport with people, a rapport that I certainly wish I had. Just a natural. Some people are naturals. Tony Whitford was that. He could interact from the highest up to a person just sitting on the street corner. And that served Tony well. And he never looked down from anybody or on anybody, because he himself knew that we came from someplace, and our someplace comes from humble beginnings. See?
Just keep going at it and don't think you can't do it, because if Tony can do it, so can you.
So that's how we are, and that's how we are as Métis people, is that we come from, in many cases, pretty humble beginnings. Many of us have been to residential school, as Tony and all my other brothers, most of my brothers, and one of my sister were. And Tony took the best of what he could in any situation.
We had just gone home, and I went to pick up my wife and a little baby son, and I got home. Somebody stopped the truck, said, "What are you doing here? The riverbank is caved in. Houses are falling into the river."
And use the best of that situation in order to better himself, and in order to decide how should I make my life be better with what I've learned from these experiences. So Tony was very, very good like that.
Tony's done a lot of things, and Tony is one of those elder statesmen for the Northwest Territories. And not only that, he was very community-minded. I still remember the days of hearing that Tony put in the dog track for the Canadian Championship Dog Derby in Yellowknife. That's a 50-mile track. I mean, that takes a few days probably to do something like that. Tony, very community-minded, and always out there to help the community the best way that he could.
No one else like him. He's so warm and inviting and funny, and he has this humor that's like, you don't know it's coming, and he'll just start talking to you, and then you don't realize that it's a joke that he's telling. And so he was always full of those jokes and had a really witty sense of humor, and just how he worked with people, how he spoke to people. He connected with people really well, and like you see that wherever he is, he's always talking to everyone, and and paying attention to them. And I think that was really a special part of who he was.
His legacy, I think, is, to me anyway, is just simply wanting to give to the people where he lives, to give back to the community, and he's done that so many times over, right? In the public service that he has offered up during the course of his very interesting life, really, when you get down to it. You know, here's a kid that's come from the sticks, so to speak, and he is just, he's hit a home run. He's hit a home run that I certainly will never achieve, you know, and he's hit a home run, and certainly most other people who live normal daily lives maybe just never aspire to or whatever. But Tony got there, and he enjoyed doing it. He loved politics. He loved the people, and if I could put him back, if I could turn the clock back to Tony and place him at 40 years old, I know Tony would be all out there again in the same way, probably doing the same thing, and running for public office somewhere, wherever it is, and basically trying to improve the lot of not just our Métis people here, but rather for all the people that surrounded him in his daily life. I can only say of Tony today that he's probably up there in heaven as we speak now, and probably organizing his first rally or whatever it is that he's doing, and you know, seeing if he can get onto the right party, and away he goes. See? So that is so Tony.
Imagine how good the TV's gonna look now. And spoiler alert.
No! Don't panic.
Don't panic.
Cut to. Well, we're not cutting to.
What do ladies want to watch?
Look out! It's drama.
Oh.
I'm ready for it.
Triple. Homicide accepted.
Everything all right here?
Yeah. Is there a problem?
We got a call about a disturbance.
I just think there's something really off about this guy. I've lived through today, this day, before. I need you to believe me and tell me I'm not completely crazy. What would you be prepared to do if you had one more chance?
Anything.
Welcome to Plan B Agency. Select your desired destination.
Breaking news that shapes your world. With local CBC Radio 1 Live to connect us closer to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On the CBC News app. Download for free.
Imagine how good the TV's gonna look now.
Oh, God!
This is incredible.
Did you know this?
As if.
Could the pressure be any higher?
Moments that are so on trend right now. Ticket pricing, artificial intelligence, being a Swiftie. Commotion, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Sarah Leonardis mo yung inugtitudak tiriyo yung CBC igalakun nun. Dahil matawtun nela mo si Northbeat min.
Students in Jasper, Alberta are back in class today. It's the first day of school since wildfire tore through parts of the community this summer. Julia Wong has the latest.
Yeah, a lot of preparation was involved to make sure that schools would be back up and running for students on this first day back to school. You know, you look at those images that have come out of Jasper this morning, and it looks like really any other first day of school. You have buses that are dropping students off, you have parents who are dropping students off, students who are arriving at the school on their bikes, ready to get going and excited for classes. So it does look like any other school day in Jasper, but I think we all know that this school year is just a little bit different. And to get schools ready, there was a lot of time that was involved, a lot of work that was involved to make sure that these schools would be safe places for these students. Now, this is all because of that wildfire that ravaged that community in late July, forcing about roughly 20,000 people out of their homes, ultimately destroying about 30% of the town's buildings. And it created a lot of uncertainty for residents, created a lot of uncertainty for families and their children. So now residents have been back in the community for a few weeks and have been able to slowly get back into that routine, but schools needed a bit more time to make sure that things would be safe, as I mentioned, for students. They had to inspect their ventilation systems. School boards were saying that they found smoke, ash, dust inside the school. Ceiling tiles had to be replaced, had to be removed, because there was that possibility that they could absorb particles of ash. And then school divisions had to do assessments on air quality to make sure that things would be safe and proper for students health-wise. So we spoke with a school principal who said that all of that needed to be done because after the uncertainty of the last couple of months, they wanted to make sure that students felt safe when they came back to class. Take a listen.
School would be something like stable in their life and safe and something that they know they will come back and recognize the furniture, their toys, everything, the people, the staff. So it will be like a moment in their life to finally settle down and be able to be kids with their friends. That's what they want.
So aside from some of those tangible things that had to be done before kids could go back to the classrooms, school divisions are also making sure they have supports and resources in place for students as well as staff after everything they've endured over the last couple of weeks. So they are putting in place counselors, psychologists to make sure that these students and staff know that they have people that they can turn to, that there are people who will be there if they find things a little overwhelming or if that adjustment back to school is difficult because, again, of everything they've gone through over the last couple of months. So school divisions say that those supports and resources will be available starting today, that first day of school, and they will continue to be available throughout the school year.
That was the CBC's Julia Wong reporting from Edmonton. An owner of a dental clinic in Iqaluit is calling on the city for help with paying off fees. The calls come after his new clinic, which was under construction, burned down last year. The three-story building was meant to have staff housing and a larger space that could accommodate more employees. Mark Mafuz is the owner of Iqaluit Dental Clinic. He says after the building burned down, he received a large number of bills from the city for firefighting and cleaning up the mess. He says the amount totaled $135,000, and he says with interest, he now owes around $150,000. Mafuz made a presentation to City Council asking for the interest to be waived and for more financial help.
We're just a small business, and yeah, it is hefty. So yeah, I was hoping I could get some help with that.
Iqaluit City Council voted to defer the request so it could check what the city is allowed to do under its bylaw. A new daycare facility is in the works in Clyde River, Nunavut. The municipality is doing a survey to determine the size of the facility. There's currently no licensed childcare space in the community. The hamlet's chief administrative officer says the cost could be around $10 a day per child.
One of the mother I spoke to, she told me that she is paying around $40 per day for the childcare, and this $10 is just nothing. So she would be happy to enroll for the daycare.
The survey comes after the federal government committed $10.9 million to open more childcare spaces in Nunavut. The Kakivaks Association will be one of the main investors for the new facility. Nunavut Premier PJ Akiaguk met with Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland in Ottawa yesterday. The two talked about housing, early childhood education, and how to make life more affordable in the north. Akiaguk says Nunavut is willing to work closely with any government.
We've really worked well with the key files and the key ministers that are in government right now. And the ability for us to continue to advocate for our priorities is so important. And it's important for us to be here to meet with them face to face. So for that, I'm very thankful for the opportunity for us to showcase not only our ask, but what we're doing as well.
Akiaguk says he's hoping for more investment in Nunavut from Ottawa in the fall economic statement. The federal Liberals have suffered another by-election blow, losing a safe seat on Justin Trudeau's home turf in Montreal. Catherine Cullen looks at what it could mean for the party's future and the prospects for a general election.
For the Bloc Québécois, a win on the island of Montreal is a welcome twist.
It's awesome.
For the Liberals, it's especially painful.
What went wrong?
Well, we lost. Actually, I'd probably take it quite personally.
A Liberal stronghold previously represented by a Prime Minister. The Salle-Lemart-Verdun and its predecessors have gone red for most of the last half-century.
Obviously, it would have been nicer to be able to win and hold Verdun.
It leaves the Prime Minister to explain why his party can't hold a seat in his own backyard.
We need people to be more engaged. We need people to understand what's at stake in this upcoming election.
Asked in French if it puts his leadership in question, the Prime Minister says there's work to do and they'll keep doing it. It comes after a surprising by-election loss in Toronto in June, both key areas the Liberals rely on for votes to form government. This Liberal MP was asked if the Prime Minister could stay on.
The bottom line is when people speak, we need to listen.
In fact, there is no way for the Liberals to dump their leader, and he insists he will fight the next election.
People are done with the Liberals. They're done with Justin Trudeau. They're done with the Liberals. They are finished.
Yet the NDP saw mixed results, keeping the Winnipeg riding of Elmwood-Transcona. But despite more than half a dozen visits from leader Jagmeet Singh, they came in third in Montreal.
We have the ability to win within striking range.
Canadians in the former Liberal strongholds of Toronto and Montreal have now given their verdict.
While the Conservatives still hope to force an election.
Isn't it time for Canadians to have a chance to render their verdict right across the country?
To do that, the Conservatives would need both the Bloc and the NDP to vote to topple the government. And right now, neither party sounds ready to commit to that. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's inflation rate dropped last month, and it hit a level that could lead to a substantial interest rate cut. Nisha Patel explains.
Prices at the pumps last month were down 5% from a year ago. Clothing and footwear also got cheaper, with retailers offering bigger discounts to attract consumers. All that helped headline inflation cool to 2% in August, returning to the Bank of Canada's target for the first time since 2021.
So that's great news. And I think it bodes well for the Bank of Canada to continue lowering rates. But I don't think the story is quite over yet.
Rents, though, continued to climb, up almost 9% compared to the same time last year. Mortgage interest costs jumped nearly 19%. And many Canadians are still feeling the impacts of years of rising prices.
Gas today is cheap, diesel is cheap. I don't know why it should be cheaper. Everything else is expensive.
90% of the money I spend in my day-to-day life is food and rent. The amount I'm spending on groceries and rent, I don't know how this can get much worse.
Still, the threat of inflation has largely subsided. High interest rates made borrowing more expensive, slowing consumer spending. But that's also had ripple effects.
The level that interest rates are at is still putting the brakes on the economy. Labor market, we've seen employment stalled, and the unemployment rate has really picked up in recent months.
That's a clear concern for the Bank of Canada, which has lowered its key interest rate 3 times since June and opened the door to steeper cuts if necessary.
If the economy is materially weaker than we're expecting, inflation's weaker than we're expecting, it could be appropriate to take a bigger step.
The Bank of Canada will make its next interest rate decision in October, and most economists expect another cut. With forecasts, the key interest rate will hit 3.5% by the end of this year. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
An organization that teaches Nunavut kids how to play the fiddle is touring communities. The Tusotnaknik Sivumut Association is in Pond Inlet this week. The association has been visiting Nunavut communities since 2016. Stacey Reed is one of this year's instructors. She says music is a language of its own that can bring people together.
Obviously, as native English speakers, most of the people that we run into here, their first language is Inukshuk. So, we've done this little kind of exchange with them where we're like, how about we teach you something today? And then in turn, you teach us something as well. So we're trying to bridge this idea of learning. Learning is so important. It doesn't matter if it's music, if it's language, if it's, school, if it's just learning how to be kind, if it's learning how to, be a leader, be empathetic. We're trying to develop basic skill building and kind of mentorship skills in addition to the music as well. And I think students love that.
Reed helped one of her former students in New Brunswick decide to make the trip to Nunavut.
I love building those connections with the kids, getting to know them, learning their names, year after year going, hey, you're back, how was your summer? And just being able to connect through music and seeing the joy that it brings them and the progression and them building on top of what they learned.
TSA offers virtual lessons for people in communities further north. The association says it's in the early stages of planning next year's tour. Now let's take a look at the weather. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A Russian scheme here
shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
I've lived through today, this day, before. What would you be prepared to do if you had one more chance?
Anything.
Welcome to Plan B Agency. Select your desired destination.
And spoiler alert.
Cut to. Well, we're not cutting to.
What ladies want to watch?
Physical activity helps you feel younger, so you can age better. Everything gets better when you get active.
News you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want, with local CBC Radio 1 Live to connect us closer to home on the CBC News app. Download for
What do we know
about that with Andrew Chang.
I think we can explain.
Watch free on CBC Gem.